All right. Welcome to Stronger Weekly. Thank you so much for being here. It is midway through October, just a little bit midway through, and I hope everybody's fall is going well. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're leaning into whatever health and fitness goals, hopefully you have them, that you've set for yourself for the fall. I just love the fall. It feels to me like, in America, every season, as the seasons change over, it's an opportunity to pull up, self-evaluate, and set some really good goals for yourself as you go into that new season. Obviously, in the fall, if you don't know, now you know, a lot of people pull up and look at their alcohol consumption, particularly around October for Sober October. So if you're committed to that, if you're going, alcohol-free for the whole month, or if you just said, hey, I want to step back and moderate a little bit, I hope that's going great. I hope you're seeing the benefits of that. I know that I am. So kudos to you. And if you haven't, and if you're drinking regularly, hey, why not just jump in? It's October 20th or later when you're hearing this. You've got 10 days left, maybe. Give it a shot. And you can always just make up your own thing, like no alcohol November or whatever you want to do. We've got some great health and fitness headlines to kick off this show that I'm going to get to in a minute. And then on the back end of the episode, just like last week, we are pulling an episode from the vault. This time from Brad Dunn of Reliant Fitness. Brad is a major player in the online kind of fitness space. He does his own coaching. He's got a great community. But just like last week with Eric Hinman, Brad has an awesome story about what happened to his life when he took a look at his alcohol consumption and pulled away from it for good. And you can just look him up and look at him, and you can see the results, at least physically, from doing that. So it's a great interview from over a year ago with Brad from Reliant Fitness. Definitely hang on past the health and fitness headlines for that conversation, because it's great, it's motivating, and it's relevant, particularly in October. So before we jump into the health and fitness headlines, my thought of the week quickly, just something I've been thinking about a lot as I get close to my 41st birthday coming up in November on Thanksgiving. And as I, kind of live in and settle into my 40s, I think a lot about my own training, my own physical training. And I wanted to talk about understanding and accepting our physical potential. And here's what I mean by that. So, I'll be 41, and I started training seriously, strength training, and then layering over cardiovascular training and eating for health and nutrition. I started after I got out of boot camp from the United States Marine Corps. Now, you would think I started before that. That's a whole nother story. I needed the Marines to have some discipline and purpose, and we'll leave it at that. But when I got out of the Marines and I got into the fleet and I started, training with other Marines in different states, there was an emphasis on physical preparedness, physical capacity, physical fitness. And I really leaned into it. It's my training started off with whatever I could learn and pick up from other Marines and other people I knew. And in that case, it was, bro splits and bodybuilding, right? So I was doing your chest, back, legs, shoulders, arms, core, whatever. And I, like most people back in the day, we stuck to that for a while. And that was kind of the prevailing training fad, whatever. And then as I, aged a little bit and trends started to change, science started to increase, and you heard more voices in the space, you start having different types of training protocols, right? You look at the powerlifting, strength training, hybrid training, CrossFit, high rocks. Over the last 2 decades, there's been so many innovations and iterations around training, and I've tried most of them. And I've got, a pretty good data bank going in my head of what works and for who and whatnot. But back to this idea of our own genetic capacity, our own ceiling of what we are able to accomplish with our bodies naturally. And I'll say that I fell into this trap, is what I'll call it, that I need to lift heavy and I need to put on bulk and I need to muscle up. And, I've done everything I can. I've taken the supplements, I've done the training, I put the work in, and I just haven't seen my personal body bulk up to where I can be 215 pounds and 7 to 8% body fat. I've been strong. I'm strong relative to my body weight. I'm strong relative to the general population of people who don't train like me. But I will never be, and this is the main point here, I will never be an NFL linebacker looking dude. I'm not going to be naturally, healthfully, is that a word? Healthily, in a healthy way, lean at 220. I'm just not built that way, right? And you can do some research on this, and I have. And there is this idea of what's called a genetic ceiling, our own hardwired capacity to put on lean muscle mass given our DNA and our makeup. And I think that there's not a failure in accepting our own limits, right? But if you don't, that's where you get into trouble. If you're constantly unhappy with your body because you have unrealistic goals, you're going to carry that. You're going to feel down. You're going to feel bad about yourself, like you're never doing enough and there's always more to do. And that's not a good feeling, especially when it comes to your physical look and how you feel about yourself, right? So accepting our own limitations to how God has made us is healthy, but it's not quitting and it's not failure. It doesn't mean that you can't optimize your body and your health as best you can, right? And if you push yourself too much, you're not just going to feel always like you're failing and not reaching your potential, which you may already have. You also could get hurt. You could get injured. If you're constantly loading more on the bar, you are eventually going to get hurt, especially as you get more tread on your tires, right? If you're constantly looking for these new and novel, exotic, complex ways to do exercises, right? So as I'm moving into and settled into my 40s, I'm accepting this reality that I've done awesome with what I've got. I'm healthy. I'm fast. I can run. I can lift. I know that I look as best as I possibly can. And when you have this mindset of like, hey, I'm doing the best with what I got, and then you start changing your training, so maybe you're not burning yourself out. You're not getting injured. You're not pushing yourself. You're not investing 9, 10, 11 hours a week chasing some goal that is just completely not achievable for you. Work hard, be consistent, train smart, and be happy with what you've accomplished with yourself. And if you're not doing all those things, start moving in that direction, right? So if you're not sitting here like me thinking, I'm doing all the right stuff, but I've got an unachievable goal, maybe it's, you know what? I can achieve my potential if I just commit myself to it and be disciplined. So anyway, that's my kind of thought of the week. I just want to encourage everybody, keep doing what you're doing, have achievable goals, realize your potential, and settle in and lean in with what you got. And with that, we're going to jump in to our health and fitness headlines of the week. Let's do it. All right, our first health and fitness headline of the week, new data around obesity in America from the 2025 State of Obesity report from Trust for America's Health. So they released the report, which is for 2025, showing that 42.8% of U.S. adults now meet the clinical definition of obesity. And if you're wondering, that is a BMI, body mass index, of 30 or higher, so almost 1 in 2 U.S. adults. The report warns that adult obesity rates have tripled since the 1980s and are continuing to climb in 22 states. So the bottom 3 states, respectively, last place, West Virginia at 46.6% of adults classified as obese, Louisiana at 45.9%, and the state of Kentucky at 45.1%. While on the other end of the spectrum, hey, my home state, 26.9% in the state of Colorado. So the number 1 state for obesity. Did I say that right? The least amount of obese people, Colorado, followed by Hawaii and Massachusetts. Some New England representation there. Those are the lowest obesity rates. So from the study, Dr. J. Nadine Gracia, quote, obesity is not a matter of willpower. It's about environments that make healthy choices harder. The report cites structural issues like limited access to healthy food, poor walkability, and aggressive junk food marketing. So, nearly half the country is living in obesity or as obese people. I have to say, I appreciate here Dr. Gracia saying that this is a structural issue and it's not about a willpower. How about a both end, right? Yes, can we do better as a society to promote health? Of course. And I think we're getting good at that. I think the information's out there, but also willpower does come into it, right? You need to choose those healthy foods in the supermarket. You need to exercise. So I think it's a both end conversation, but really it's sad to hear that 42.8% of Americans are obese. Of course, that drives chronic illnesses and preventable deaths from things like diabetes, heart disease, and let's mention, the costs, the healthcare costs that go with those chronic illnesses. $170 billion annually is estimated to help heal or at least treat some of the conditions caused by obesity. So, hey, folks, got to eat healthy, got to live healthy. Your next health and fitness headline, making waves out there in the health and fitness world, was a new study by Consumer Reports that found elevated lead levels in some of the most common protein powder brands out there. So the investigation claims that several popular protein powders and shakes contain, quote, high levels of lead and other heavy metals, end quote. Researchers tested 30 brands and said some exceeded California's Prop 65 safety limits for lead, arsenic, and cadmium. Not going to pretend I know what that is. Cadmium. Industry leaders, such as Jeff Byers, CEO of Momentous, responded saying, quote, trace metals occur naturally in soil. The same elements show up in apples, tomatoes, and spinach. Jeff emphasized that the report ignored serving size and dietary context, noting, quote, real-world context matters. So according to data from the FDA, the trace lead levels flagged in most powders are below those found in even common foods like strawberries, tomatoes, and others. Many dietitians agree that contamination risk is minimal if products are third-party tested and used in moderation. So if you've seen the report, I linked to it in the episode description. You should definitely read it. There are a couple brands on there that ranked excessively high while others were moderate and then low. So take the report with a grain of salt. Be aware of the supplements you're taking and make sure you're choosing supplements that are third-party tested and certified to avoid unnecessary exposure. Your next health and fitness headline for the third week in a row, something about GLP-1s. This time, studies finding that the drugs themselves, the fat loss drugs, may reduce the feeling of intoxication for people while drinking alcohol. So new research in Scientific Reports reveals that GLP-1, drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, may blunt alcohol's effects by altering the body's response to intoxication. So you can get less obese and apparently less drunk, according to this. So the study, led by Dr. Elizabeth Gerlhog-Holm at the University of Gothenburg, found that mice given semaglutide had lower blood alcohol concentrations and reduced dopamine release in the brain, suggesting weaker reward signaling when drinking alcohol. Dr. Holm explained, quote, this could help explain why many patients report reduced cravings, but it might also encourage them to drink more to feel the same buzz. So a little catch-22 there. You're drinking, you don't feel it, you drink more. Not a good ultimate outcome there. So every week it feels like more reports coming out about these GLP-1s that are all the rage. But to that, I would say, please, and I said every week about these GLP-1s, they're new, and with anything new, sometimes, these drug companies get out over their skis. They start blasting things to the masses without a lot of clinical research done to see if there's negative side effects. So, as always, I encourage consult your doctor before you go on any of these medications and make sure that you're doing it in a safe way. Next up, a new study finds genetic links between cannabis use and mental illness. Sorry for all my cannabis fans out there. So a groundbreaking study published in Nature Genetics by Washington University School of Medicine analyzed over 1 million genomes and found hundreds of overlapping genetic variants tied to cannabis use and psychiatric disorders such as schizophrenia, depression, and ADHD. So in other words, there's genetic markers that would indicate if you're using cannabis in an unhealthy way, maybe forming an addiction, you also could have a comorbid psychiatric disorder such as schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, ADHD. So lead researcher Dr. Arpana Argwal said, quote, this doesn't mean cannabis causes mental illness, but it reveals shared genetic vulnerability. So what I said, but more eloquently, not surprised. The study combined data from 20 international cohorts and found that individuals genetically predisposed to cannabis use were also more likely to score higher for impulsivity and neuroticism, traits linked to psychiatric risk. The findings highlight why some people experience heightened anxiety or paranoia after using cannabis while others don't. Genetics may dictate those responses. Guilty of that. I don't smoke weed. I don't use cannabis because I get anxious. I've tried and failed. So, takeaway here for everybody: cannabis is not universally safe or dangerous. Outcomes depend heavily on individual biology. So, tread lightly, folks. For some people, cannabis can be beneficial, enjoyable. For others, not so much. And your last health and fitness headline of the week. This one about strength training and its connection or benefits for people who are obese. So a new study in JAMA Network Open offers powerful evidence that strength training shields the body from the worst effects of obesity. Researchers followed over 400,000 adults for nearly a decade. That's a lot of people for a long time, and found that those with higher muscular strength had 30 to 40% lower rates of heart disease, diabetes, and early mortality. And this is key, even when already overweight. So lead author Dr. Thomas Wills noted, quote, strength acts as a buffer. Even with higher body mass, stronger individuals have better insulin sensitivity and lower inflammation. The benefits were strongest among those who trained 2 to 3 times per week using compound lifts like squats, deadlifts, and presses. Hoorah! The researchers estimate that improving strength across the population could prevent tens of thousands of premature deaths annually, which is fascinating. So even if you are overweight, but you're committed and you're strength training, you're doing more for your body internally than you even realize. Now, of course, the goal, back to the first health and fitness headline, is to not be obese, right? So if you're strength training and you're kind of stuck or plateaued in terms of fat loss, of course you want to look at things like your nutrition first and foremost, foundationally, but of course also cardiovascular training, because not only will you lose more fat, your heart will get healthier, and then you'll create an environment in your body where hopefully the fat loss follows. So resistance training is definitely one of the most effective tools that we should be using on a regular basis. So that is it for our health and fitness headlines of the week. Just a quick word from our sponsor, Or Health. And on the other side, Brad Dunn from Reliant Fitness joins us. We'll see you over there. Look, 1 in 10 Americans today struggle with alcohol use disorder, and I was one of them. Did you know that there is a safe, science-backed daily pill that you can take to drink less or even quit alcohol for good? It's called naltrexone, a doctor-prescribed medication that you get online, and our sponsor, Or Health, is the nation's leading provider of naltrexone. To date, Or Health has helped over 35,000 people find freedom from alcohol, and I'm proudly one of them. To get started, text STRENGTH to 710-710. Again, that's STRENGTH to 710-710, and get started on your journey to finally find freedom from alcohol. Brad, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me, Jesse. And looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. You've got an amazing story, don't you, bro?
I like to think so. life has been pretty exciting, and ups and downs and all arounds and everything in between, bro. So it's been a good ride.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that ride. So, I know you're sober. I know you're 100% sober, and I know that you kind of willed yourself there. But walk us through when you made that decision. I'm done drinking. How'd you do it? Because a lot of people will commit to a certain specific program, for better or worse. But I know from chatting with you, you did it on your own, and I love that perspective because it shows people that you can do that. So talk us through what that was like.
Yeah, man. So I mean, it wasn't even necessarily like a initial goal. It just kind of happened. Like when I committed to, this new life of like fitness and health and, basically continuously bettering myself, I was, I'll give credit where credit's due. I teamed up with Wes Watson.
Okay.
I joined his program. I saw a couple guys that I went to high school with come through his program and like get in like incredible shape. And I was like, I'm gonna see what this is about. Like
Hmm.
I've always worked out, you know, I've done somewhat with meal prepping and diet. Like I have experience. Let me see what this is about. And I committed to the program and really started seeing some big changes in my body and my mind. And right, I'd say I did like a 90-day program, right? And I'd say about that 2 month mark of like really being on point, I was like, I don't even really want to drink anymore. You know, I was, instead of going out Friday nights and waking up Saturday hungover, I was waking up early on Saturday to go to the gym, you
Heck
know,
yeah.
and I was staying up late to prep meals and stuff like that, like not going out. And I felt like really fucking good, you know, for the
Yeah.
first time in a really long time, like I felt good. And I just kind of had this weird epiphany, you know, like, what if I don't go back to that, like ever? You know, like I had built up so much like positive momentum in such a short period of time. I was like, what if I don't fuck off anymore? You know, like what could I do with my life, my body, my mind, my business if I just continue to go forward and only forward,
Zero
whether I'm
knucklehead.
running
No
or
more
walking?
knucklehead.
What's that?
I said zero knucklehead because it
Yeah,
sounds like
no, no more
you're bringing
bullshit.
down.
No,
Yeah.
no more bullshit. You know, because that was the thing is I basically realized, you know, I'd already experienced everything that alcohol and drugs could possibly do for me. Like,
Yeah.
and they were no longer serving me in any way, shape, or form that was good for my life, myself, or my family. So it's like, fucking throw it away, you
Yeah.
know, just do away with it, you know. And as I, you know, got kind of deeper and deeper and deeper into the process of building somebody that I was like proud of, I just got less inclined to kind of go back to those things, you
Well
know,
said.
because I was feeling the changes and I was seeing the changes and I was like, you know, and there was a couple times along the way that I like still had a couple drinks or like went to a buddy's wedding and like woke up the next day and I'm like, dude, that fucked up like my whole week. That fucked up
Hmm.
my whole week. Everything I did to lead up, you know, all those good marks just got fucking washed away. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm done with that shit, dude. Like I basically had a buddy's wedding, you know, and I was like, this is like the last hurrah. This is it. Like, and that was basically it. You know, I basically was like, I'm not drinking anymore after this. Like,
Wow.
I'm just not. And it's been that way ever since. And that was, I think, October of 2022.
What I like about your story, frankly, is like it's like simple. You're like,
Very
hey,
simple.
I dialed in on the fitness, and that was what kind of enabled you indirectly to take that break from alcohol. And then that break got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then from a moment of clarity, these are my words, not yours, obviously, but you were like, why the fuck was I doing that anyway? I feel amazing now. And it's like the
Well, that
fitness brought you there.
Well, that's just it, man, is for the first time in my life, I was able to have clarity because I went more than 3 or 4 days without drinking, you
Yeah.
know, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize is like from the time that I mean, as teenagers and even into adulthood, most adults don't go more than a couple days, maybe a couple weeks without a drink.
Yep.
And they don't realize how profound that effect is on your mental and physical state. You
Yeah.
know, when you're constantly clouding your judgment, clouding your mind, you know, and there's a lot to be said about how alcohol has that direct effect on you, you know. So when I basically was like, fuck it, I'm gonna see what a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months feels like, and I was like, why did I even bother with that for so long, you
Yeah.
know? And that's huge. And I still tell that to my clients today. I'm like, yeah, you know, whether you're coming here to get sober or not, like while you're working the program, at least try to participate in the level of sobriety for the period of time that you're here. Because it will
Love
change
that.
your life. It will
Love
it
that.
will drastically increase your level to think and act clearly.
So you mentioned your clients. What's I'm sure you have all different types of people with different experiences, unique circumstances. But if you had to say, like, what are most of your clients coming to you for? Their like first meeting. I'm assuming there's a consultation. Or like, Brad, man, this is what I'm experiencing. I see some things from you that I want. This is what I'm after. Like, how would you describe that?
Yeah. So I'd say most of the men, I mean, I work with men and women, but a large majority of my client base is men.
Hmm.
Most of the men I work with, either same thing. They've kind of lived that life where they're constantly drinking and just kind of fence riding their way through life. They realize that they're capable of doing more, but they've never really done anything to do it. Or you have like the atypical family man who, started having kids and busy with work and kind of took care of everybody else and never really took care of themselves. So it's a mix, people
Yeah.
who have a history with substance or with alcohol, or people who, have put everybody else first in their life for a period of time, and they're like, I need to rediscover myself. I need to find myself again, you
Yeah.
know. And they come to me, and I try to get them to commit to, one of my longer programs. Like, I do programs and time commitments. So I do like 30-day, 90-day, 6 month, 1 year. And I usually
Hmm.
try to get everybody to commit to that 90-day or 6 month period, because that's a long enough period of time to really change habits, build discipline, build consistency, and see like real results, you
Yeah.
know? Because like health and fitness, as much as you see some of this fucking smoke and mirrors and bullshit online, like, it takes time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not some 6 week boot camp that's going to change your life. It's day in and day out, following the structure of the program and you applying yourself. And no matter how tired or worn out you feel like you go fucking do it anyway.
Right.
And most of these men have that big aha moment in that, usually that 90-day period, where like, this is my life now. Like, I've never felt better. I've never been like more proud of what I've accomplished in a short period of time. Like, I actually like looking at myself in the mirror. My wife is giving me a bunch of compliments, because it's not just fitness. You know what I mean? Like, obviously fitness is a wonderful commitment that everybody should have to some degree, but it's like, when you practice that level of consistency with self-respect, self-control, and self-love, you you start to pour that into everything that you do. you
Mm.
know it's not just about you anymore. Like, you're showing up for the other people in your life a certain way. um and that level of dedication and respect and discipline pays into everything.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking at when you talk to someone for the first time? What's some of the low hanging fruit, some levers that you can pull early on? Does it get real granular? Like, what time do you go to bed? Do you sleep? How much do you drink? What's your fitness? Walk us through that kind of like early kind of process.
Well, I ask them what they want. I'm like, what do you want? What do you want your life to look like? Like, what do you want from this? You know what I mean? Because I can't just I have to help them build a mental target. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Because if I just say, if they have an idea of exactly what they're trying to accomplish, they're going to have a much clearer like path to make it happen. And
Yeah.
I tell all my clients this. I'm like, you guys need to build this target, because you can't hit a target that doesn't exist. You
Yep.
can't just
Amen.
waltz through this program and expect it to be your saving grace. You have to build that vision and that person that you want to look like when we cross that quote unquote finish line. And not that
Hmm.
there's ever really any finish line. And that's what people tend to notice. They hit one goal and set another. They hit another goal and set another. It's just that idea of Kaizen, the constant progression, constant improvement. It's never over. You're never just like, fuck, I fucking figured it out. I'm right where I want to be. Leave me alone right here. It's like, okay, what do
Yeah.
I work on next? What do I do next? Where do I go next? So
Yeah.
it's like, I kind of am like, well, what do you want? What is your goal? What do you want to accomplish? Okay, you want to lose 20 pounds and look better, feel better, develop some better habits. Perfect. I got you.
Hmm.
I'll put you on this training program. I want you to, basically train, 5, 6 days a week. Here's your nutrition assignment, calories, macros, pretty detailed, like basically down to the gram, like what you should be consuming every day. And then here's a sample meal plan that's going to help you hit those numbers on a daily basis. Now do this every day for basically the next 3 months, 6 months, a year. And I'll make adjustments along the way as we hit certain milestones. And then I host 2 weekly meetings through Zoom. And these are like almost like a check in accountability, type thing, where I ask them how they're doing, and this is a group setting.
Yeah.
So there's anywhere between 10 and 30 people on the Zoom call, and I'll kind of just run through everybody like, hey, how you doing? Tell me something good. Like no negative bullshit here, all good news.
Yeah.
So start with because most people vent negative, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have to flip that mindset and vent positive. Tell me good stuff that happened this week. How's your training been going? How's your nutrition? How you feeling? Like, and then with that, reoccurring kind of check in and building that relationship, I can, better tweak their programming and then also build a better relationship with them because we are connecting on a regular basis.
Look, life can be hard and stressful sometimes. We all know that. But when it comes to supplements, why is it that nobody talks about stress and resilience? For me, I take the adaptogen stack from Momentous Supplements. It's a daily blend of ashwagandha, rhodiola, and L-theanine, all clinically backed to help you stay calm, focused, and resilient. I'm proudly partnered with Momentous Supplements because they are the industry's best. They don't cut corners. Everything's third party tested, used by pro athletes, and high quality. Head to livemomentous.com and use code STRENGTH for 35% off your first order. Again, that's livemomentous.com, code word STRENGTH for 35% off your first order, and get started today. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you is, and you threw in the accountability piece, like and showing up to a Zoom call, and I'm using the word accountability, but if I knew I was showing up to that Zoom call, however often it is, that would be an extra motivator for me for those days where I don't feel like training because I don't want to show up and then you look at me and go, how's your training going, Jess? And me
Yeah.
being like, I either got to lie or tell the truth, which is basically like, well, I'm weak and I couldn't do it. But I don't mean to say the word weak, but do you find that ever happen with your clients? Do they ever say like, Brad, now that I'm in this thing, man, I don't know that I can do this. And then if that does happen, maybe it doesn't, but like, how do you like give them that motivation?
Yeah. I mean, everybody experiences a little bit of doubt from time to time.
Mm,
I still experience it. It's just like, dude, like I know there's going to be days where you don't want to go train or you don't want to follow the meal plan. You just want to sleep in and this and that. But it's like, I, I tell you right now, and this is still true to me to this day, even the days that I don't want to go and I make myself go, I feel way better afterwards.
heck yeah.
You will be rewarded by your actions. You
Yep.
know, the universe or God or whatever you want to call it doesn't reward people who take the easy route.
Hmm.
Create that friction and build your foundation off of doing what's difficult. You know,
Yeah.
you guys all want an easy life, so to speak, right? So get used to doing shit that's hard
Yeah.
because the harder you work and the harder you kind of make your life and your conditions, the easier shit will be in the future. I guarantee it. I mean, just recently I've like kind of pulled back on some of my training, you know what I mean? Like I was for a long time I was like every day, every day, every day. Cuz it was like when I was doing that work and concluding my workout, that's when I felt the best.
Yeah.
Like that level of dopamine and work and being present was what I enjoyed the most. It made the rest of my day better.
Yeah.
But, obviously with different goals and trying to achieve different things, you have to implement periods of rest. You can't train 7 days a week and expect to, go forever. But I mean, I encourage all of my clients, especially initially in that first 90-day period, I'm like, you're training 6 days a week.
Hmm.
Like whether, you get Sundays off unless you need your rest day moved to another day. But we're here
Yeah.
to push you physically and mentally. You're going to work, more diligently and harder than you probably have at anything in your entire life for a short period of time. And you're going to be changed from it.
Yeah. I'm watching the clock with you because I know you're a busy guy and I want to be respectful of your time, like I told you before we started. I have one more question,
Yeah.
and I don't want you to give away the secret sauce, Brad. What are like the five most important fitness tips or advice that you would give me to start the process of looking like you? What are the most important things? Only fitness, not mindset, mindfulness. Give me your fitness advice. What would you say?
I mean, it's just get regimented, like get intentional with your actions, so
Hmm.
it's like, when you're working out, train with intention. You're going to the gym, you're there to train, you're training, whether it's you're pairing muscle groups or single muscle groups, like you're there to work. And
Mhm.
it's, whether it's 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, you're working. Get intentional with the foods you eat. Food is fuel. Food is like almost like a superpower if used right. And nutrition is a huge part of what I coach and what I try to teach in my programming. Because a
Yep.
lot of people, as crazy as it sounds, they don't know how to eat. They eat fast food and microwave bullshit and they wonder why they feel like garbage. I'm like, because you fuel your body with garbage. Like,
Right.
so, I mean, if I had to just nail down some basics for people to really start falling in line for themselves, it's like, dude, work out 5 or 6 times a week, whether it's
Mhm.
in a gym or it's outside. Drink plenty of water, eat whole foods, get some sunshine every day, and aim to get between 6 to 8 hours of sleep.
Love it.
And you do that for 40, 60, 90 days, and you're gonna feel like a whole new human being.
Love it. What's your favorite workout split you've ever done?
So I really like push pull legs
Okay.
because that allows me to train those 6 days, like I call it that breaking period, right? So a lot of my programming, at least for my initial clients who can handle kind of that load, is push pull legs. So it's like chest, shoulders, triceps, back, biceps, rear delts, and then hammering legs. 6 days a week, one day
Mhm.
off and rinse and repeat, for basically 3 months,
Mm.
following a meal plan and stuff like that. Cause that's going to build that habit. That's going to build that kind of work ethic in a sense when it comes to being in the gym and just hammering.
Yep.
Um, Obviously, once we get to certain points, then we can work in a little bit more specifics as far as splits and targeting muscle groups and parts of the body. But almost everybody I work with, right off the bat, goes through a massive push pull legs routine.
Got it. So PPL rest. That's your
Mhm.
6 days and repeat.
Mhm.
Here, just a fun one I just thought of. Deadlifts.
Mhm.
Pull day or leg day.
Oh man. I mean, really both, bro. But I mean, I do deadlifts when I'm training legs. Um, because I'm focusing on kind of that lower posterior chain
Yep.
mostly.
Hmm.
But I mean, it is most definitely one of the most powerful full body exercises for sure. You know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Heck
you're
yeah.
engaging everything, to get that weight off the ground if you're lifting heavy enough.
Yeah. Let me know when you're giving away the sauce because I'm going to keep firing away. I feel like I got another couple minutes with you. Do
Yeah.
you kick off your workouts with like heavy compound, like low reps, high weight, or do you have like an even like hypertrophy rep range? What do you recommend?
So yeah, I mean, obviously, I kind of lean into that hypertrophy thing because a lot of people, I don't want them lifting heavy initially because most of the
Smart.
time they either haven't worked out in years
Hmm.
or they have no idea really how to work out.
Hmm.
So, a lot of kind of my initial programming is, high volume, a lot of reps, a lot of sets to kind of ensure that proper time under tension and really like challenging people to fight through some sets because that classic, 3 by 8 to 10 or 12 rep scheme, like most people, and I mean like 95% of people are not training with the intensity to really get the stimulus out of that rep and set range.
Mm.
So like when I put people on higher volume, and they're doing 3 to 5 sets of anywhere between 15 and 25 reps, like they're burning it, like they're earning it,
Yeah.
because like a lot of people like, oh, dude, I've never fucking done 25 reps of anything. And I'm like, well, welcome to it. This is
Yeah.
working out. Like this is what's going to stimulate, growth and change and that mindset, that mindset where most people want to stop at 10. It's like, you got 15 more, homeboy. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, you're not even
Yeah.
halfway there yet, pal. Like,
It's a
but,
long road. It's a long road when you do it that way. Yeah.
yeah, but that's
Yeah.
that's probably, a lot of my go-to style of programming to
Mhm.
ensure that they're really pushing themselves and actually working.
Love it. Love it. And Brad, I know your signature move, if you will, is your driveway burpees. You do burpees everywhere. That's your move, man. That's a form of cardio
Yes.
and or at least partly cardio. What say Brad about cardio programming? What's your thoughts?
I mean, it depends on what you're training for.
Yeah.
if you're an endurance athlete, then make it a priority. You know, if
Mhm.
you're just trying to trim up and get a little fat off you, then I'd say, you know, anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes of zone 2 cardio 2 to 3 times a week will help you
Yep.
big time. You know, just
Yep.
that added activity at that lower intensity is always solid, you know.
Yep. Yep.
Um yeah, I love cardio to an extent, you know what I mean? And like especially working as a firefighter, you know, we'd have to like literally try to kill ourselves in training. So that those workouts where you're just like gassed, laying on the mat, like seeing stars, like I love that.
The anaerobic stuff like burpees when you're just
Mhm.
like, yeah, because I'm assuming firemen, right? Like rush, 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 open that hydrant, carry that hose, ravel it. Like you can't stop for a breather. You just got to keep pushing. So it's probably anaerobic stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
of it's a lot of high intensity. You know, you're carrying a decent amount of weight. You know, you're typically working for, you know, a pretty long period of time,
Yeah.
um, and it's a lot of fun.
Heck yeah. And you're
And I
saving
mean,
lives.
something that stood out with me. One of the older guys said, you know, when I was just getting started, and granted, like I was in decent shape then, but I wanted to be in like top tier physical shape. You know, he said, this job's a lot more fun when you're not bending over on your hands and knees sucking air, you know,
Hmm.
and I knew from
Yeah.
that moment, I was like, I need to be very conditioned and I need to be the hardest worker here so I can get the most out of this job.
Hell yeah. And the people that you're serving and in some cases saving deserve the best from you, you know?
Yeah,
And I'm
absolutely.
sure that's a motivator too. Brad, you know, getting to know you here for the last hour, you've got a lot to offer people. You're a smart guy, you're experienced, you got an awesome story, you're blowing up, you're growing like a weed, obviously. What is next for Reliant Fitness and Brad Dunn as we look forward into the future?
Oh man, I mean, there's so many opportunities and things, but I mean, this year I'm gonna just really focus on like fortifying my business, right? Like
Uh-huh.
learning all the some of the back office stuff. But big goals is, you know, starting to, you know, offer, you know, some in-person events where people can come out and learn and train and stuff like that. I want to open up my own facility, you know, to where people can come and train and film and podcast and do all those things under one roof and not feel, you know, weird in a commercial gym walking around with a camera or wanting to take shirts off. But, you know, just kind of continuing to grow the culture that I love and live and find other ways to explore it and have fun with it.
I love that. I love that you landed on the word culture, man, and lifestyle. It's awesome, dude. Thank you so much for being here. It's been an awesome, awesome conversation. Everybody, Brad from Reliant Fitness. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, bro.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks for listening to the Stronger Weekly podcast for your health news, fitness insights, and motivation. Wishing you a strong and healthy week ahead. We'll see you next time.